Imagine the glittering deck of a luxury cruise ship mid-ocean under a starlit sky. Laughter echoes from the ballroom toasts clinking for my parents' golden anniversary. I paid for it all $40,000 from Grandma's inheritance fund, a gift to honor their 50 years. But days before sailing, Dad's text hits like a rogue wave. "It's better if you're not here." Banned. From my own generosity. Humiliation burns through me, a lifetime of favoritism flashing back, always second to my brother, always the outsider in my own family. Heart-pounding, I dig into the fine print. The sponsorship clause Grandma designed, it gives me control. With one click, I cancel the payment. Chaos erupts. Lights flicker across the ship, music cuts, dead slot machines freeze. Passengers gasp as the captain's voice booms over speakers. All non-essential services suspended due to a financial hold. Dad texts frantically, "Please undo this. We're begging." My phone lights up 110 missed calls from Mom. Her voicemail's a mix of fury and tears. But this is no simple revenge. What unfolds next exposes layers of betrayal deeper than the sea-hidden addictions, a scheming outsider, and Grandma's secret safeguards from beyond the grave. Stick with me through the storms, the twists that flip heroes and villains, and the ultimate payoff where justice sails in triumphantly. You won't believe how one daughter's stand unravels a family's web of lies and delivers the satisfaction you've been craving. What really happened when the ship went dark? Keep watching. The revelations will shock you to your core. I'm Kate Reynolds, 48, a family lawyer in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I've spent years untangling other people's disputes while quietly carrying the weight of my own. Born to parents who always seemed to see my younger brother Evan as the golden child, I learned early to prove my worth through loyalty and grit. Grandma June, my rock, taught me to stand tall, and her inheritance fund became my way to honor that strength. The email confirmation glowed on my laptop screen, $40,000 transferred from Grandma June's trust to fund my parents' 50th anniversary cruise. It was my gift to them, a lavish week on the Golden Horizon, complete with champagne toasts, ballroom dancing, and Caribbean sunsets. I pictured Mom Ruth, her silver hair catching the light, and Dad Howard maybe softening his usual gruff demeanor. At 74, he'd been distant lately, but I hoped this gesture would bridge the gap. I'd spent months planning, coordinating with the cruise line, ensuring every detail was perfect for their milestone. My heart swelled imagining them stepping onto the ship, Mom's laughter mingling with the sea breeze. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "It's better if you're not here." 6 words sharp as a blade. I stared at the screen, my kitchen suddenly too quiet, the hum of the fridge mocking my shock. Better without me, I'd poured my savings, my love, my respect into this trip. My fingers trembled as I scrolled back, hoping it was a mistake. No explanation, no apology, just those words slicing through years of trying to please them. I thought of every time Dad praised Evan's tech startup while dismissing my law practice as paperwork. Every time Mom's eyes lit up for Evan's calls but dimmed for mine. This wasn't just a rejection. It was a public humiliation, a declaration that I wasn't wanted at their golden moment. Anger simmered, but I'm a lawyer, I don't act on impulse. I pulled up the cruise contract, my eyes scanning the fine print for leverage. Grandma June's fund wasn't just money. It came with strings, ones she'd tied herself. I found it buried in the legalese, a sponsorship clause. As the payer, I held the right to cancel or freeze payment if I suspected misuse or abuse of the gift. Misuse. Maybe not yet. Abuse. Dad's text felt like a slap, but I needed more. I needed to understand why. I leaned back, the weight of betrayal settling in my chest. Was this Evan's doing Mom's silence, or something uglier? I stood pacing to the living room where Grandma June's keepsake box sat on the mantel, a carved wooden relic she'd left me. She'd been my anchor, the one who saw me when my parents didn't. I opened it, sifting through her old letters, a locket, a faded photo of her on a cruise ship decades ago. Then I saw it, a cream envelope sealed with her elegant script reading, "Open at sea." My breath caught. The ship was already sailing and I wasn't on it. Why this instruction? I tore it open, careful not to rip the paper. Inside, a single note in her familiar cursive. "When the sea stirs, seek my old friend at port." No name, no explanation. Just a cryptic promise, like a riddle from a woman who never spoke idly. My pulse quickened. Grandma June knew something, planned something. But what? And who was this friend? I didn't have time to dwell. My phone lit up with an email from the cruise line, a courtesy update. Payment under review due to flagged activity. Flagged activity. I hadn't done anything yet. I called the agent Lila, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "What's going on with the Golden Horizon payment?" Lila hesitated, then said, "There's been a change in the guest list, Ms. Reynolds. Your name was removed and another was added. We're required to notify the sponsor." Removed. Replaced. The words twisted in my gut. "Who authorized it?" I asked. "It came from your father's email," she replied. "But the IP address is unusual. We're looking into it." I hung up, my mind racing. The sponsorship clause loomed larger now. I could cancel the payment, freeze their access to the casino, the bars, the spa, everything non-essential. It wasn't just revenge. It was power, the kind Grandma June had ensured I'd have. I logged into the cruise portal, my finger hovering over the cancel payment button. This was my money, my heart, my dignity they'd tossed overboard. But that note, "Seek my old friend," nagged at me. What did June know? Was this why she'd set up the clause? I needed answers, but first, I needed to act. I clicked the button. A confirmation popped up, payment canceled. Non-essential services suspended. I exhaled, a mix of relief and dread. Within minutes, my phone buzzed again. A text from Dad. "Kate, undo this now. Please." No apology. Just desperation. Then another and another, his pleas piling up. I ignored them, but then Mom's number flashed, 110 missed calls, voicemails flooding in. I played one, her voice trembling. "Kate, what have you done? The ship's gone dark." I froze. Dark. I'd expected the casino to shut down, maybe the bars, but not this. I pulled up the cruise line's live feed and there it was. Reports of flickering lights, silenced music, passengers milling in confusion as the captain's voice crackled over the intercom announcing a temporary system hold. My heart pounded. Had I gone too far? The clause was meant to protect, not paralyze a ship. Yet Grandma's note burned in my mind, her words a beacon in the chaos. When the sea stirs, something bigger was at play, something she'd foreseen. I clutched the note, my resolve hardening. Dad wanted me silent, erased from their celebration. But now the ship itself was screaming and I was just getting started. If Dad wants me silent, why is the whole ship screaming? The ship's chaos echoed in my mind, those flickering lights, and Dad's desperate texts replaying like a bad dream. I sat in my Raleigh living room, Grandma June's note. "When the sea stirs, seek my old friend at port," clutched in my hand, its mystery gnawing at me. My phone vibrated again, Mom's 111th missed call lighting up the screen, but I couldn't listen yet. Dad's words. "It's better if you're not here," had cracked something open, a wound deeper than this cruise. I needed to understand why I was cast out, why my $40,000 gift wasn't enough to earn a seat at their table. The answers weren't on that ship rocking somewhere in the Caribbean. They were buried in the past. I closed my eyes and it was 3 years ago, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling Mom's hospital room. At 70, Ruth had faced a knee replacement, her hands trembling as she gripped the bed rails. I'd taken leave from my law practice, spending weeks at her side in Durham, adjusting pillows, fetching water, and coaxing her through physical therapy. "You're my rock, Kate," she'd whispered, once her voice soft, but her eyes distant, like she was holding something back. Dad, meanwhile, was scarce always on his phone muttering about Evan's latest tech venture. That boy's going places, he'd say, as if my late nights drafting legal briefs for families in crisis were just busy work. I'd swallow the sting focusing on Mom's recovery, but each of Dad's dismissive glances carved a little deeper. Evan, 45, charming and reckless, could do no wrong while I was the dutiful daughter, invisible unless needed. Back in the present, I set the note down and checked my phone, not for Dad's pleas, but for something older. I scrolled through voicemails past Mom's frantic new messages until I found one from a year ago, saved but unplayed for months. Mom's voice crackled through tired but firm. "Kate, honey, you have sponsorship rights from Grandma. She made sure you'd hold the reins if things went sideways. Don't forget that." I froze my thumb hovering over the replay button. Sponsorship rights, I'd known about the clause in the cruise contract, but Mom's words hinted at something bigger, like Grandma June had seen this betrayal coming. Why hadn't Mom reminded me sooner? Was she trying to warn me, or was she complicit in Dad's decision to cut me out? The voicemail felt like a lifeline, but it raised more questions than it answered. I needed to talk to Evan. He was the golden child, the one Dad trusted with everything. If anyone knew why I'd been replaced, it was him. I dialed his number, my heart thudding as it rang. He picked up on the third ring, his voice casual, almost too smooth. "Kate, you okay?" "Heard about the ship wild stuff. I didn't waste time. Why am I not on that cruise, Evan? I paid for it. Who's in my place?" Silence stretched, then he sighed, a nervous edge to it. "Look, it's not personal. Dad needed someone for medical perks. You know how he's been with his heart meds. It's just logistics." Medical perks. The excuse felt flimsy, like a half-truth meant to dodge scrutiny. "Who's the replacement?" I pressed. He hesitated, then muttered, "Some friend of theirs. Brenda, I think." "It's no big deal, just easier this way." Easier for who? His slip-up was too quick, too practiced, like he was covering for something or someone. I leaned back, my gaze falling on Grandma June's keepsake box still open from last night. On top lay an old wedding photo of Mom and Dad, 1975, their faces young and hopeful. Mom's wrist gleamed with the heirloom bracelet, a silver chain with a single sapphire passed down from June. It was more than jewelry, it was a symbol of promises kept of family. I'd seen Mom wear it every day, even in the hospital, her fingers brushing it like a talisman. But if she was on that ship celebrating without me, who was wearing it now? The thought twisted in my gut, a new layer of betrayal. Had Mom agreed to this exclusion? Or was she caught in Dad's orbit? As always, Evan's words echoed medical perks. It didn't add up. Dad's heart condition was managed, not urgent. Why replace me with a stranger? I thought of Grandma June, her sharp eyes missing nothing. That note in her box wasn't random. She'd known my family's fault lines, the way Dad's favoritism and Mom's silence could fracture us. The sponsorship rights weren't just financial. They were her way of giving me power, a way to demand respect. I stood the photo in one hand, the phone in the other. Evan wasn't telling me everything, and Mom's voicemail felt like a plea from someone trapped. If Mom wanted me on that cruise, if she'd left that message to remind me of my rights, then who had decided I was unworthy? And why was Dad so desperate to keep me away? If Mom wants me there, who decided I'm unworthy? My brother's words lingered like a bad aftertaste. Medical perks, a flimsy excuse for why I'd been replaced on the cruise I'd funded with $40,000 of Grandma June's trust. Sitting at my kitchen table in Raleigh, the wedding photo of Mom and Dad still in hand, I couldn't shake the image of Mom's heirloom bracelet, its sapphire glinting like a promise now broken. Evan's hesitation on the phone, his quick dodge about this, Brenda, felt like a half-truth, and Mom's old voicemail about my sponsorship rights echoed in my mind. If Mom believed I had power, why was I the outcast? I needed facts, not feelings, to unravel this betrayal. As a lawyer, I knew evidence was my weapon, and I was ready to wield it quietly but decisively. I opened my laptop, the cruise line's portal still glowing from my last login where I'd canceled the payment and sent the golden horizon into chaos. My phone buzzed, another plea from Dad ignored. Instead, I emailed Lila, the travel agent I'd worked with for months to plan this trip. I need the full paper trail on the guest change. I wrote my tone sharp but professional. Every log, every detail. Lila replied within the hour, her email a goldmine of digital breadcrumbs. Attached were logs showing the guest list amendment. My name swapped out for another authorized via an email from Dad's account. But the IP address caught my eye, a string of numbers not tied to Dad's usual devices. I cross-checked it online, my heart racing as the results pointed to a private medical clinic at the cruise's first port, Nassau. A clinic Evan's medical perks excuse suddenly felt less like a dodge and more like a clue. I called Lila, her voice tense but cooperative. "The IP's from a clinic called Coastal Wellness," she said. "It's not unusual for passengers to coordinate with medical providers for onboard care, but it's odd." Odd was an understatement. Why would Dad's email sent from a clinic's network replace me with a stranger? I pressed further. "What's the new guest's profile?" Lila hesitated, then sent a follow-up file. The +1 was listed as a priority medical companion linked to a code for onboard health services. But here's the kicker. The code wasn't tied to Mom's records. Mom's knee surgery was years ago, her health stable. If anyone needed medical oversight, it was Dad with his heart condition, but his file showed no such code. This wasn't about Mom's care or Dad's. Something was off, and it smelled like manipulation. I leaned back, my mind sifting through the contract I'd studied last night. Grandma June's sponsorship clause was my ace. Buried in the fine print, it gave me as the payer the right to freeze non-essential spending casino bars, spa if I suspected abuse of the gift. Abuse wasn't just financial. It was trust, loyalty, respect. Replacing me with a stranger using a shady clinic's network screamed betrayal. I logged back into the portal, my cursor hovering over the freeze non-essential spending option. Canceling the payment had already shaken the ship. This would tighten the screws, locking Dad out of the glitzy distractions he loved. But I hesitated, Grandma's cryptic note flashing in my mind, "Seek my old friend at port." Was this clinic tied to her warning? I needed more before I acted, but the clause gave me power and I wasn't afraid to use it. I called Lila again, digging deeper. "Can you trace who the new guest is?" I asked. She promised to check, but her tone shifted, cautious. "Kate, the clinic's name has popped up before in guest changes. I'll need time to pull records." Time I didn't have. The ship was already mid-ocean, and Mom's 112th missed call buzzed my phone. I didn't listen, her voicemails were a mix of panic and guilt, and I wasn't ready to face that yet. Instead, I studied the logs again. The email from Dad's account was sent at 2 a.m., not his usual hour. Was he even the one who sent it? The clinic's involvement felt like a puzzle piece that didn't fit, and Evan's vague Brenda comment gnawed at me. Was she the new guest? And why a medical code for someone not in Mom's file? I opened the contract again, rereading the sponsorship clause. It was ironclad. If I flagged abuse, I could halt all non-essential transactions, forcing the cruise line to prioritize essential services like food and medical care. It was revenge without a scene, a way to hit Dad where it hurt his pride, his control. I pictured him at the casino, card declined, his face reddening as the slot machines went dark. But this wasn't just about Dad. Mom's silence. Evan's slip up the clinic's shadow, it all pointed to a bigger scheme. I clicked. Freeze, my heart steady despite the weight of it. A confirmation email pinged, non-essential spending suspended pending review. The ship's luxuries were now off limits, and I'd done it with a single move. My phone rang. Evan. I answered, my voice cold. "What's going on, Kate?" he said, his usual charm fraying. "The ship's a mess. Dad's freaking out." I didn't flinch. "You said it was about medical perks, Evan. Care to explain the clinic's IP in Dad's email?" He went quiet, then stammered, "It's complicated." "Look, just don't push this." "Okay." Complicated. That was no answer. I pressed. "Who's Brenda and why is she on my ticket?" His pause was too long. His voice low. Sis, wanna know who just took your spot? Evan's question hung in the air like a taunt. Sis, wanna know who just took your spot? His voice, usually so slick, cracked with unease, but he didn't answer before the call cut out, leaving me staring at my phone in the dim light of my Raleigh kitchen. The cruise line's confirmation email, non-essential spending frozen, glowed on my laptop, a small victory after Dad's betrayal, and the mysterious clinic IP in the guest change logs. But Evan's dodge about this Brenda and the medical code not tied to Mom's records churned in my gut. Who was she, and why was she on my $40,000 ticket? I needed to know, not just to fuel my anger, but to understand the depth of this exclusion. As a lawyer, I thrived on evidence, and I was about to dig deeper. I opened my phone, bypassing Mom's endless voicemails, and turned to social media, something I rarely did. The cruise hashtag #HadGoldenJubilee popped up in a search filled with glittering posts from the golden horizon. Couples toasted under chandeliers, but one post stopped me cold. A woman, Brenda Colton, 39, had shared a photo from the ship's deck, her smile bright, almost smug. Her caption read, "Celebrating love and second chances on the #GoldenJubilee. Grateful for new friends and a shining legacy insured asset included." The photo showed Mom, her face tight, standing beside Brenda, her wrist bare, no heirloom bracelet, no sapphire glinting in the sunlight. My breath caught. That bracelet, passed from Grandma June to Mom, was a family treasure, not just jewelry. Brenda's words, insured asset, felt like a deliberate jab, as if she knew its worth beyond sentiment. Was she wearing it? The thought twisted the knife of Dad's rejection deeper. This stranger wasn't just in my place. She was claiming pieces of our family. I scrolled through Brenda's profile, my pulse quickening. She called herself a church friend of my parents. Her posts dripping with inspirational quotes and wellness hashtags. One stood out, a coupon for a coastal wellness trial linked to the same Nassau clinic tied to the IP in Dad's email. Wellness trial. The phrase echoed Evan's medical perks excuse, but it felt calculated, like Brenda was more than a tag-along. Her posts painted her as a saint volunteering at church visiting seniors, but the coupon and her presence on my ticket screamed opportunist. I clicked through her photos, each one a performance of piety, but none showed the bracelet. Why mention it as an insured asset? Was she flaunting her access to Mom's treasures or signaling something bigger? Then I saw it buried in the comments under her post. An anonymous account, no profile picture, wrote, "Check consent forms." Just 3 words, but they hit like a warning shot. Consent forms. For what? Mom's health records were clean, no recent procedures, no need for onboard medical codes. Was this about Dad's heart meds, or something shadier tied to that clinic? I screenshotted the comment, my lawyer instincts kicking in. Anonymous or not, this was a lead, a thread to pull. I tried tracing the account, but it was locked, no details visible. Whoever they were, they knew something, and their timing right after I froze, the ship's spending, felt too precise to be random. I leaned back, my mind racing. Brenda's post, the missing bracelet, the clinic connection, it all pointed to a scheme, but I needed more to act. I called Lila again, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "Any update on the new guest's identity?" I asked. She sighed. "It's confirmed, Brenda Colton listed as a medical companion. But Kate, that clinic's name keeps coming up in their system. I'm still digging." I thanked her, my thoughts circling back to the sponsorship clause. As the payer, I'd already frozen the casino and bars, but the clause gave me broader control, temporary oversight of the entire account if I flagged abuse. Abuse wasn't just money. It was trust, and Brenda's presence reeked of it. I logged into the cruise portal, checking the account status. A new alert blinked, pending review, account control escalation available to sponsor. Escalation. That meant I could lock everything: dining, upgrades, excursions, even onboard purchases, until the cruise line investigated. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the escalation option. This wasn't just about hitting Dad where it hurt. It was about protecting Mom, whose bare wrist in that photo haunted me. Was she complicit, or caught in something she couldn't escape? Grandma June's note, "Seek my old friend at port," flashed in my mind, a reminder that answers might be waiting beyond the ship. But for now, I had power, and Brenda's smug caption fueled my resolve. I was about to click when my phone pinged a message from the ship's purser, a name I didn't recognize. "Ms. Reynolds, your rights could control the frozen account temporarily. Please advise." My heart skipped. Control the account. This was bigger than a freeze. It was a chance to pull the strings to demand answers. But who was Brenda, and what was she really after purser messages? "Your rights could control the frozen account temporarily." The purser's message. "Your rights could control the frozen account temporarily." Flashed on my phone, a beacon of power in the dim light of my Raleigh kitchen. Brenda Colton's smug, hacked Golden Jubilee post. Mom's bare wrist, and that anonymous comment about consent forms swirled in my mind, each piece sharpening my resolve. The cruise line's portal still showed my $40,000 payment on hold, the ship's luxuries locked down by my hand. But this wasn't just about leverage. It was about protecting Mom, whose silence in that photo felt like a cry for help. I needed to tighten the screws legally, methodically, to unravel this scheme and shield her from whatever Brenda and Dad were playing at. I called my colleague Delgado, a sharp estate lawyer I'd known since law school. His voice was steady grounding as I explained the cruise contract and Grandma June's sponsorship clause. "Kate, send me the documents," he said, and within minutes I'd emailed the contract, the guest change logs, and the IP trace to that Nassau clinic. Delgado called back an hour later, his tone brisk. "This clause is airtight." June worked with the cruise line's legal team to design it specifically to protect Ruth. It's not just about money, it's about ensuring her safety and autonomy. You've got full authority to freeze or redirect funds if you suspect exploitation. I leaned forward, my pulse quickening. Grandma June, always one step ahead, had built a safeguard for Mom, as if she'd foreseen Dad's betrayal. Delgado added, "The clause prioritizes essential services, food, medical care for Ruth, even if you lock everything else." "You're in the driver's seat, Kate." I opened the cruise portal again, my fingers steady now. The escalate control option blinked, but Delgado's words gave me clarity. Mom needed access to essentials, her meals, her meds, while Dad's casino and bar privileges could stay frozen. I navigated the settings, selecting Restore Essential Services for Ruth's account only. Her passenger ID popped up, confirming access to dining, medical facilities, and basic amenities. Dad's ID, tied to the same account, stayed locked out of non-essentials. No slots, no cocktails, no spa. A confirmation email pinged essential services restored for Ruth Reynolds. Non-essential spending remains suspended for Howard Reynolds. I exhaled, a quiet satisfaction settling in. This wasn't revenge. It was justice, precise and legal, ensuring Mom's safety while Dad faced the consequences of cutting me out. My phone vibrated, not with another call from Mom, now at 115, missed, but a private message from an unknown number. The sender's name popped up, Brenda Colton. My stomach twisted as I opened it. "Kate, women your age shouldn't fight the tide. Let this go and we all sail smoothly." The words dripped with condescension, a soft threat wrapped in fake civility. I reread it, my lawyer instincts kicking in. This wasn't a casual text. It was evidence. I screenshotted it, forwarding it to Delgado with a note, "Possible intimidation. Keep this on file." Brenda's audacity stunned me. She wasn't just a church friend basking in my ticket, she was bold enough to challenge me directly, as if she held the upper hand. But why? What was her stake in this beyond a free cruise and Mom's bracelet? I paced the kitchen, the screenshot burning in my mind. Brenda's mention of the bracelet as an insured asset in her post, paired with this message, felt like a calculated move. Was she after more than jewelry? The clinic IP, the medical code, not tied to Mom. Her presence on my ticket, it all pointed to a plan, one I hadn't fully pieced together. I thought of Grandma June's note, "Seek my old friend at port." Was Brenda connected to that cryptic instruction? Or was she the threat June had anticipated? I needed more evidence, but the clause gave me room to maneuver to keep Mom safe while I dug deeper. I checked the cruise portal again, monitoring the account status. The system logged every action, creating a digital trail as clear as ink. Delgado had emphasized the clause's power. I could escalate to full account control, overriding all transactions until the cruise line's investigation concluded. It was tempting, but I held off. Restoring Mom's essentials was enough for now, a way to protect her without tipping my hand too soon. Brenda's threat, though, changed the game. She wasn't just a passenger. She was a player, and her message suggested she knew I'd frozen the account. How was she monitoring the ship's systems, or worse, had someone on board tipped her off? My phone pinged again, this time an email from the Golden Horizons purser marked urgent. Ms. Reynolds, Captain Sorensen requests a private meeting via video call tomorrow at 900. Please confirm availability. My heart skipped. The captain I'd expected pushback from Dad, maybe more voicemails from Mom, but not this. Sorensen's involvement meant the ship's lockdown had rippled higher than I'd thought. Was he calling to negotiate, to reprimand, or to reveal something about Brenda's scheme? I typed a quick reply, confirming the call, my mind racing with possibilities. Grandma June's clause had given me control, but this meeting could change everything. Captain requests a private meeting with me. The captain's email. Ms. Reynolds. Captain Sorensen requests a private meeting via video call tomorrow at 0900 sat heavy in my inbox. A summons that felt like both a challenge and an opportunity. I leaned back in my Raleigh kitchen, the glow of my laptop casting shadows across Grandma June's keepsake box. Brenda's veiled threat. Women your age shouldn't fight the tide still stung, but I'd saved it as evidence, and my lawyer Delgado had confirmed the power of June's sponsorship clause. I'd restored Mom's essential services while keeping Dad's casino and bar access locked, a legal jab to protect her and rattle him. But the captain's involvement meant the ship's chaos was bigger than my family drama. What did he know, and how did it tie to June's cryptic note about a friend at port? I woke early, nerves buzzing, and joined the video call at 9 a.m. sharp. Captain Sorensen's face filled the screen, his weathered features and gray eyes exuding calm authority, like a man used to steering through storms. Behind him, the Golden Horizons bridge hummed with quiet efficiency, screens flickering with data. Ms. Reynolds. He began, his Scandinavian accent clipped but warm. Your payment freeze caused quite a stir. Lights dimmed. Slots went dark. Passengers panicked. I need to understand your intent. I straightened, my lawyer instincts kicking in. Captain, my intent was to protect my mother Ruth per the sponsorship clause. My father replaced me with a stranger, and I suspect foul play. Sorensen nodded, his expression softening. I've seen the logs. A fraud alert from our system coincided with a mandatory safety drill, pure bad timing. We paused non-essential services to secure guest accounts, not just yours. But your freeze amplified it, and passengers felt the pinch. His candor surprised me. He wasn't blaming, just explaining. The crew wasn't some faceless machine, they were people caught in my move, trying to keep a floating city of thousands safe. Sorensen leaned forward, his voice lowering. I want to resolve this quietly. Your mother's safety is my priority too. What do you need to lift the freeze? I paused, weighing my leverage. Mom's essentials were restored, but Dad's exclusion of me, Brenda's threat, and that clinic IP still gnawed at me. I needed answers, not just control. I want a private meeting with my mother alone when you dock at Key West tomorrow, I said. No. Dad, no Brenda. Just us. Sorensen's eyes flickered with understanding. Done. Noon at the port lounge. In exchange, allow partial system access, dining upgrades, excursions for other passengers. Your father's non-essentials stay locked. I nodded, logging into the cruise portal to adjust the settings. A few clicks and a confirmation pinged, partial non-essential services restored, excluding Howard Reynolds. It felt like a truce, one that kept Mom safe while I held the reins. As I saved the confirmation, Sorensen's tone shifted, almost nostalgic. Your grandmother June sailed this route years ago. Did you know that I froze my breath catching? June. She was a remarkable woman. He continued, left a message with my predecessor, a captain I trained under. Said if her family sailed again, there'd be a trusted friend at port to guide them. I don't know who, but her note was clear: protect Ruth, no matter what. My heart pounded. Grandma June's keepsake note. When the sea stirs, seek my old friend at port wasn't random. She'd planned this, weaving safeguards into the cruise line itself, as if she'd foreseen Dad's betrayal and Brenda's scheming. Sorensen's words humanized him, a captain honoring a promise from a woman he'd never met, but they also deepened the mystery. Who was this friend, and what did June know about the dangers Mom faced? I thanked Sorensen, ending the call, my mind racing. The ship's panic wasn't just my doing, it was a collision of systems fraud alerts and drills, but June's foresight tied it all together. I checked my phone. Mom's missed calls had stopped at 1:16, her silence now louder than her voicemails. Was she okay, or was Brenda tightening her grip? I pictured Mom stepping off the ship at Key West, her face worn but hopeful, ready to talk. But would Dad let her go? Would Brenda? The deal with Sorensen was a step forward, but it hinged on Mom showing up alone. I opened June's keepsake box again, tracing her notes cursive, its promise anchoring me. Tomorrow could change everything if Mom could break free. Key West, noon. Tomorrow if Mom makes it across the gangway. The captain's words about Grandma June's trusted friend at port lingered as I packed a small bag, my heart pounding with the promise of tomorrow's meeting. Captain Sorensen had secured a private mother-daughter talk at Key West's port lounge at noon, a deal I'd traded for restoring partial ship services, keeping Dad's casino access locked. I boarded an early flight from Raleigh, the hum of the plane doing little to calm my nerves. Mom's 116 missed calls had stopped her silence, now a weight heavier than her voicemails. Would she show up alone? Or would Dad's shadow or Brenda's follow her Grandma June's note? When the sea stirs, seek my old friend felt like a guidepost, but the stakes were personal now. I needed Mom to speak, to tell me why I'd been erased from their golden anniversary. I arrived at Key West by mid-morning, the humid air thick with salt and promise. The port lounge was a quiet oasis, all wicker chairs and soft jazz, a stark contrast to the bustling docks where the golden horizon loomed, its white hull gleaming under the sun. I checked my watch, 11:55 a.m., and scanned the room, my pulse quickening. Then I saw her Mom stepping through the glass doors, her silver hair pulled back, her steps tentative but deliberate. My breath caught at her left hand, no wedding ring, just a pale band of skin where it used to sit. She spotted me, her eyes softening, but there was a weariness in her posture, a woman carrying more than the weight of her years. She slid into the chair across from me, her hands folding tightly in her lap. "Kate," she said, her voice low. "I didn't want this. Any of it." I leaned forward, searching her face for answers. "Then why, Mom? Why let Dad ban me from the cruise I paid for?" Her gaze dropped and she took a shaky breath. "It's Brenda. She's here to monitor your father's heart meds, or so he says. He insisted she come instead of you, said it was practical medical. I didn't fight him." Her words landed like a punch. Practical, I'd spent weeks by her side during her knee surgery while Dad barely showed. Now he'd swapped me for a stranger under the guise of medical needs. I pressed my voice steady but firm. "Mom, there's no medical code for you or Dad tied to Brenda. She's not just a nurse, she's scheming. And your bracelet's gone." Mom's hand flew to her wrist, her face crumpling. I gave it to her to hold. She said it was safer with her." Anger flared, but I kept it in check. Mom wasn't the enemy, she was trapped, her loyalty to Dad blinding her to Brenda's game. I reached into my bag, pulling out a small leather journal I'd found in Grandma June's keepsake box last night, tucked beside her cryptic note. I opened it to a marked page, June's neat cursive staring back. "If pride sets sail, let truth dock." Mom's eyes widened as she read it, her fingers tracing the words. "Your grandmother gave me this journal years ago," she said, her voice breaking. She knew your father's pride, his need to control would pull us apart. She warned me to stand firm. I knotted my throat tight. June had seen Dad's flaws, his favoritism, his secrets, and she'd armed us with tools to fight back. This scrap wasn't just advice. It was evidence of her foresight, a call to set boundaries. Mom's shoulders straightened, a spark of resolve flickering. Kate, I've been thinking of leaving him after this cruise. Not just because of you, but everything. His choices, his secrets. I'm tired. Her admission stunned me. Separation. Mom had always been Dad's anchor, quiet but steadfast. Now her bare ring finger spoke louder than words. I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. You don't have to do this alone, Mom. I'm here, but we need to know what Brenda's really doing. She nodded, tears brimming, but before she could speak, a shadow crossed the lounge entrance. My stomach dropped as Dad appeared. His face flushed Brenda at his side, her arm looped through his like a claim. I stood, my heart racing. Dad's eyes locked on mine, a mix of guilt and defiance, but Brenda's presence chilled me more. Her smile was sharp, confident, as if she'd orchestrated this interruption. Mom tensed her hand, pulling back from mine. Howard, you shouldn't be here, she said, her voice firmer than I'd expected. Brenda's gaze flicked to me, then Mom, her expression unreadable. I clutched June's journal. Its words let truth dock burning in my mind. This wasn't just a meeting. It was a line in the sand, and Mom was finally stepping toward it. But with Dad and Brenda closing in, I wondered if she'd hold her ground. Brenda strides in, smiling like she owns the ocean. Brenda's smug smile as she strode into the Key West Port lounge, arm in arm with Dad, sent a chill through me, her confidence radiating like she held all the cards. Mom's hand trembled in mine, her bare ring finger a silent testament to her resolve to break free. But Dad's presence threatened to unravel the fragile boundaries she'd just drawn. Grandma June's journal, with its scrap reading, "If pride sets sail, let truth dock," lay open on the table, fueling my determination. I'd secured Mom's essentials and locked Dad's casino access, but Brenda's bold entrance told me this fight was far from over. I needed to expose their scheme, not with accusations, but with cold, hard facts. I stood facing Dad, whose flushed face betrayed both guilt and defiance. Kate, this is a family matter, he said, his voice low but sharp. You're making a scene I'd funded their golden anniversary only to be erased. I turned to Mom, her eyes pleading for peace, but I wasn't here to shout. I was here to uncover truth. My phone buzzed with an email from Lila, the travel agent marked urgent. I opened it, my heart racing as I scanned the attached logs. The guest swap removing my name came from Dad's personal device, not the clinic's IP, as I'd first thought. The timestamp: 17 a.m. 2 days before the cruise proved it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. Dad had planned this, deliberately cutting me out. I held up my phone, showing Mom the log. This is from Dad's tablet, Mom. He swapped me out himself. Her lips parted, hurt flashing across her face, but Dad just looked away, his jaw tight. Before I could press further, my phone rang, Evan on speaker, his voice crackling through the lounge's quiet hum. Kate, don't blow this up, he said, his tone urgent, almost panicked. You're messing with things you don't understand. I froze, my finger hovering over the mute button. Evan, always Dad's golden boy, was in on this. What don't I understand, Evan? I asked, my voice steady but cold. That you helped Dad replace me for medical perks that don't exist, he stammered. It's not like that. Just let it go. His plea only sharpened my focus. I wasn't letting go. I was digging in, and the logs were my proof. I forwarded them to Delgado, my lawyer, with a note: confirm intent and legality of swap. If Dad thought he could hide behind Evan's charm, he was wrong. The lounge doors swung open and the ship's purser, a wiry man with a crisp uniform, approached, holding a handheld scanner. Ms. Reynolds. A moment, he said, his voice low but firm. He turned to Mom, his eyes scanning her bare wrist. Mrs. Reynolds, may I verify your personal effects? Mom nodded, confused, as he scanned a digital record on his device. The heirloom bracelet registered as an insured asset under your name isn't on your person. Our system flags it as missing or unauthorized. My stomach dropped. Brenda's social media caption, "insured asset," flashed in my mind. She'd known the bracelet's value, not just sentimental, but legal. I glanced at her standing silently beside Dad. Her expression unreadable, but her posture too composed. It's with a friend for safekeeping, Mom said weakly, glancing at Brenda. The purser's brow furrowed, his fingers tapping the scanner. We'll need to confirm its location. Unauthorized transfer of insured property triggers a security hold. Brenda stepped forward, her voice smooth as silk. No need for alarms. The bracelet's secure, but you'll want a wet signature to clear this, correct? Her use of wet signature, a legal term for a physical handwritten signature, sent a jolt through me. Most people didn't toss around jargon like that unless they knew paperwork inside out. Was Brenda more than a church friend? A professional maybe versed in manipulating documents? I studied her polished demeanor now screaming calculation. The purser nodded, unfazed. Yes, ma'am, a signature from the registered owner, Mrs. Reynolds, would resolve it. Mom looked lost, her hands twisting in her lap, and I realized Brenda's legal savvy was a weapon, one she wielded to keep Mom compliant. I pulled out my phone, opening the screenshot of Brenda's post and her threatening message, "Women your age shouldn't fight the tide." This is the friend, I said, showing the purser the caption about the insured asset. His eyes narrowed and he made a note on his device. We'll investigate Ms. Reynolds. The bracelet's status is now flagged. I turned to Dad, who shifted uncomfortably, his silence louder than Evan's pleas. The logs, the scanner. Brenda's slip, they were pieces of a puzzle, and I was assembling them without raising my voice. Grandma June's words echoed, "Let truth dock." This wasn't about smearing anyone. It was about laying bare the facts, letting them cut deeper than any argument could. The purser stepped closer to Mom, his voice dropping to a whisper. Reported missing Mrs. Reynolds, he said, his eyes flicking toward Brenda. We'll need to locate that bracelet immediately. My heart pounded as Brenda's smile faltered just for a moment before she regained her composure. Reported missing Mrs. Reynolds, purser whispers. The purser's whisper reported missing Mrs. Reynolds hung in the air as Brenda's cool facade cracked for a fleeting moment, her eyes darting to Mom's bare wrist in the Key West lounge. The flagged bracelet, now an insured asset in question, had shifted the ground beneath us, and Brenda's casual mention of a wet signature hinted at a mind too sharp for a mere church friend. Back in Raleigh, I sat at my kitchen table, the cruise portal open on my laptop showing Dad's casino access still locked and Mom's essentials restored. Grandma June's journal with its scrap urging "Let truth dock" anchored my resolve. But the truth was slippery and the stakes were climbing. My phone buzzed with a breaking news alert. A severe storm was battering the Golden Horizon's route with warnings of high winds and rough seas. I pictured the ship rocking, passengers gripping railings, and Mom alone without her bracelet caught in the chaos. I tried calling her, but the line crackled and dropped. Storm interference, probably. Then a text from Mom lit up my screen. Kate, ship's shaking. Lights out again. My heart lurched. Another blackout. The first one from my payment freeze had been a fraud alert and drill coincidence. But this felt different, more primal. I refreshed the cruise line's live feed reports confirming the storm's impact. Lights flickering, systems glitching, passengers confined to cabins. The ship was a floating city under siege, and my actions freezing Dad's spending were tangled in the mess. Had I pushed too far, or was this the sea stirring June's note had warned of? I called Mom again, and this time she answered, her voice trembling over the roar of wind in the background. Kate, I found something, she said, barely audible. The bracelet. It's back with me. Brenda gave it back, said it was a misunderstanding. But there's more. I gripped the phone, my pulse racing. What, Mom? What did you find? She paused, the sound of creaking ship metal punctuating her words. There's a hidden compartment in the bracelet. A tiny letter folded inside. It's from your grandmother. My breath caught. June, always one step ahead, had hidden a message in the very heirloom Brenda had claimed. Read it to me, I urged. Mom's voice steadied, reciting June's cursive. Howard swore to me he'd shield you from his gambling, Ruth. He broke that vow. Trust Kate to set it right. I froze, the words slicing through years of Dad's deflections. His favoritism of Evan, his dismissal of me. Gambling, Dad had promised to protect Mom from that vice, but he'd failed, and June had known. Mom's voice cracked. I confronted him, Kate. Called him just now from the cabin, storm raging outside. I could hear the ship's groans through the phone, the storm amplifying the tension. What did he say? I asked, my lawyer instincts sharpening. Mom took a shaky breath. He admitted it. He's been gambling again, slots, cards, all of it. Started months ago, draining accounts. Evan knew helped him pull cash from ATMs to hide it. They didn't want you on the cruise because you'd notice, ask questions. My stomach twisted. Evan, the golden boy, covering for Dad's relapse, and me banned to keep their secret buried. The betrayal cut deeper than Dad's text, but Mom's confession was a crack in their armor, a truth June had foreseen. I paced my kitchen, the storm's distant roar echoing in Mom's words. Dad's gambling wasn't just a personal failing, it was a legal risk. If he was draining joint accounts, Mom's financial security was at stake, and my sponsorship clause gave me power to protect her. But June's letter raised the stakes higher. Dad's broken promise wasn't just to Mom, but to June, who'd trusted me to fix it. I thought of Brenda, her legal savvy, her grip on the bracelet. Was she exploiting Dad's weakness, or was she deeper in this? I asked Mom, "Where's Brenda now?" She hesitated. "With your father in the lounge. She's different since I got the bracelet back. Quiet, but watching." The storm's howl grew louder through the phone, and Mom's voice wavered. "Kate, there's something else. Your father said something odd when I confronted him." I gripped the phone tighter. "What?" She swallowed hard. "He said, 'You'll regret knowing all about Grandma.'" It sounded like a threat, like there's more he's hiding. My heart pounded, June's note flashing in my mind. "Seek my old friend at port." Was Dad's warning tied to her secret ally or something darker? The ship's second blackout, the storm. Mom's discovery, they were peeling back layers of deception, but the truth was still out of reach. Amid crashing waves, Howard whispers, "You'll regret knowing all about Grandma." Dad's cryptic warning. "You'll regret knowing all about Grandma" echoed through the storm's roar in Mom's voice, his admission of gambling, and Evan's cover-up peeling back a layer of deception I hadn't expected. Sitting in my Raleigh kitchen, Grandma June's note about a friend at port felt heavier, as if she'd known Dad's weaknesses would resurface. The golden horizon was still reeling from the storm-induced blackout, and Mom's discovery of June's hidden letter in the bracelet had shifted something in her. I could hear it in her voice resolve not just fear. But Brenda was still on board watching, and I needed to protect Mom before the truth slipped away again. I flew back to the ship's next port, Cozumel, boarding the golden horizon by morning, the air thick with post-storm humidity. The ship felt different now, passengers murmured in hushed groups, the buzz of luxury dimmed by the blackout's aftershocks. I found Mom in the dining hall surrounded by a group of women all over 55, their faces warm but weathered, gathered for what looked like a prayer circle turned potluck. They called themselves the Silver Sisters, a mix of retirees and widows who met daily for faith and fellowship. A woman with kind eyes named Marjorie patted Mom's hand as I approached. "Ruth's been telling us about you, Kate," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You're doing right by her. Don't let anyone push you around. Not your father, not that Brenda." Another woman, Clara, nodded, passing Mom a plate of homemade cornbread. Set your boundaries, Ruth. Respect starts with you. Mom's eyes met mine, a flicker of strength I hadn't seen in years. These women strangers to our family drama were giving her a voice, urging her to stand tall against Dad's control and Brenda's shadow. Mom pulled me aside, her fingers clutching the bracelet now back on her wrist. Kate. I want to make sure he can't hurt us anymore. She whispered, her voice steady despite the ship's faint sway. I nodded, pulling out my laptop to access the cruise portal. Together, we set up a dual signature firewall for major spending. Any transaction over $500 now required both our approvals. It was a legal shield ensuring Dad couldn't siphon funds for his gambling or Brenda's schemes. I emailed the change to Captain Sorensen, who replied swiftly. Noted in safety logs. Financial oversight updated for Ruth Reynolds. His response was formal but reassuring, a sign the crew was watching, documenting every move. Mom watched me work her shoulders, relaxing slightly. June would be proud, she said, touching the bracelet. She always said you'd know how to protect us. I smiled, but my mind raced. June's foresight was uncanny, and her trusted friend was still a mystery I needed to unravel. As we finished, Marjorie leaned over, her voice low. You should know, Kate. There's talk about that Brenda woman. I turned, my pulse quickening. What kind? Clara chimed in, setting down her coffee. A few of us checked with old cruise friends. Brenda's been on this route twice before, always with trial patients, older men, medical excuses. Never stays long, always leaves with gifts. My stomach tightened. Trial patients. It matched the wellness coupon from Brenda's social media and the clinic IP from the guest swap. I called Lila, the travel agent, to verify. Her voice was tense. It's true, Kate. I pulled records. Brenda Colton was a +1 on 2 prior cruises linked to coastal wellness. Both times, passengers reported gifts, missing after medical visits. The rumor wasn't just gossip. It was a pattern, and Brenda was at its center. I looked at Mom, her face pale but resolute. The Silver Sisters' encouragement had sparked something in her, a refusal to be Dad's silent partner anymore. I won't let her near our family again, Mom said, her voice low but fierce. I nodded, saving Lila's email to forward to Delgado. Brenda wasn't just exploiting Dad's gambling, she was a repeat player targeting vulnerable passengers. The dual signature firewall was a start, but I needed to confront her and Dad before she slipped away. The ship's halls felt narrower now, the storm's aftermath isolating us all. Dad and Brenda on one side, Mom and me on the other, with the crew as uneasy mediators. As Mom rejoined the women sharing stories of June's strength, I checked the portal again. The safety logs noted our firewall, a digital barrier against Dad's recklessness. But Brenda's history raised the stakes. She wasn't a one-off opportunist. She was practiced, calculated. I wondered if June's friend at port knew her, had seen her work before. The Silver Sisters' support, though, gave me hope. Mom wasn't alone, and neither was I. Their voices, warm and grounded, filled the dining hall, a reminder that community could outlast betrayal. Then a piercing emergency bell rang down the hall, sharp and urgent, cutting through the chatter. Emergency bell rings down the hall. The emergency bell's shrill cry cut through the Golden Horizons dining hall, silencing the Silver Sisters' warm chatter and freezing Mom's hand on her bracelet. My heart leapt as passengers glanced around, the storm's lingering tension amplifying every sound. I'd just learned of Brenda's history, 2 prior cruises with trial patients. A pattern of missing gifts tied to her wellness scheme, and the dual signature firewall Mom and I set had locked Dad out of major spending. The bell felt like a warning, as if the ship itself sensed the unraveling of Brenda's plans. Mom's eyes met mine, her newfound resolve flickering but holding. Kate, what now? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the murmurs. The overhead speakers crackled and a crew member's voice boomed. Attention, all passengers, remain in place. This is a precautionary alert due to wave activity. My shoulders eased slightly. Waves, not a real crisis, but the dining hall erupted in nervous whispers. Chairs scraping as people shifted. The storm's aftermath had left the ship vulnerable. and the false alarm stirred chaos passengers clutching bags and loved ones. I scanned the room, my lawyer instincts on edge, and noticed Brenda wasn't among the crowd. She'd been glued to Dad since Key West, her smug smile a constant shadow. Now, in the confusion, she was gone. I grabbed Mom's arm. "Where's Brenda?" Mom shook her head, her brow furrowing. "She was with your father 10 minutes ago near the lounge." I pushed through the crowded hall, Mom trailing behind, and spotted a crew member near the exit, a young woman with a clipboard. "Excuse me," I said, "any reports of missing passengers?" She glanced at her list, distracted. "Not yet, ma'am. Just securing areas." Waves triggered a sensor false alarm, but we're checking. I nodded, but my gut churned. The chaos was a perfect cover, and Brenda's absence felt deliberate. I pulled Mom to a quieter corner, my eyes scanning for any sign of her or Dad. Then I saw at a flash of Brenda's red scarf disappearing down a side corridor, a leather jewelry roll tucked under her arm, a file folder peeking out. My breath caught. Was she making a move, using the alarm to slip away with Mom's bracelet, or more? I started toward her, but Mom grabbed my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. "Kate, let me handle this." Before I could protest, Mom stepped forward, her voice rising above the din, steady and resonant, carrying the calm authority of her Native American roots. "Everyone listen," she said, addressing the Silver Sisters and nearby passengers. "This ship, this trip, it's about family, respect, partnership. I've let others define that for me too long. No more." The room quieted her words, cutting through the chaos like a beacon. My daughter paid for this cruise, and someone tried to take her place, to take what's ours. Respect means standing up, not standing by. Her eyes locked on mine, a silent promise that she was done being silent. The women nodded, some clapping softly, their support bolstering her. I stood stunned, pride swelling. This was Mom reclaiming her voice, setting a boundary Dad and Brenda couldn't cross. The crew member with the clipboard approached her, expression serious. "Mrs. Reynolds." "Ms. Reynolds." "Captain Sorensen's been informed of the bracelet issue and the financial freeze. He's scheduled a hearing at 8 a.m. tomorrow to address finances and passenger behavior. You'll need to attend." I nodded, my mind racing. A hearing meant formal scrutiny, logs, evidence, maybe even Brenda's file folder. Mom squeezed my hand, her bracelet glinting under the flickering lights. "We'll be there," she said, her voice unwavering. The false alarm had scattered passengers, isolating Dad and Brenda from us, but it also gave us a stage. Brenda's slip with the jewelry roll was a misstep, and Mom's speech had drawn a line. Our family's truth was coming into focus. I checked my phone, hoping for updates from Lila or Delgado, but the signal was spotty, the storm's interference lingering. The crew began ushering passengers back to cabins, the false alarm winding down, but the tension remained. I guided Mom toward our suite, her steps firmer than I'd ever seen. The Silver Sisters waved their encouragement, a quiet strength. But as we reached the hallway, my phone buzzed incessantly. 110 missed calls from Mom's number, time-stamped 2 a.m., hours after our last talk. I showed her the screen, confused. "I didn't call," she whispered, her face paling. I was asleep. A voicemail notification popped up, her voice frantic. "Kate, honey, I can't find Dad." My heart stopped. Dad missing in the middle of a storm-tossed ship, 2 a.m. 110 missed calls from Mom. "Honey, I can't find Dad." Mom's voicemail. "Kate, honey, I can't find Dad," sent a jolt through me. The 110 missed calls, time-stamped 2 a.m., flashing on my phone as we stood in the Golden Horizon's dimly lit hallway. The false alarm's chaos had scattered passengers, and Mom's insistence that she hadn't called her fear palpable twisted my gut. The ship, still swaying from the storm's aftermath, felt like a trap closing in. Brenda's slip with the jewelry roll and her history with trial patients on prior cruises pointed to a calculated scheme. But Dad's absence now raised the stakes. Was he with her, or had something worse happened? I gripped Mom's hand, her bracelet glinting under the flickering lights, and vowed to find answers. I rushed us to the ship's security office, where a crew member pulled up camera footage at my request. The screen flickered, showing a grainy feed from the tender dock at dawn, just hours after the storm. There was Dad, his face drawn, boarding a small boat to shore with Brenda at his side, her red scarf unmistakable. My breath caught. They were headed to the Nassau port, the same place tied to the Coastal Wellness Clinic from Brenda's coupon, and the IP in Dad's guest swap email. That's no coincidence, I said, my voice tight. Mom's eyes widened, her fingers tightening around the bracelet. He said he needed a checkup, she murmured, but Brenda insisted on going with him. The crew member nodded, jotting down the timestamp. They logged it as a medical visit, he said, linked to a wellness trial pass. The coupon from Brenda's Hallowed Golden Jubilee post flashed in my mind. Her scheme was moving and Dad was caught in it. My phone buzzed with an encrypted email from an anonymous sender, the same account that had commented check consent forms days ago. I opened it, my heart pounding. Attached was a scanned ledger photo from Coastal Wellness showing a form signed by Dad dated that morning. The document wasn't just medical consent, it authorized a transfer of $10,000 from Grandma June's fund, disguised as a care package fee. My stomach dropped. Brenda had gotten Dad to sign away part of Mom's inheritance under the guise of treatment. A note accompanied the image typed in blunt text, "Consent needs clarity, not meds." He was disoriented when he signed. I showed Mom, her face paling as she read. "He's been on new heart pills," she whispered. "Brenda's been giving them to him. He's foggy half the time. Medicated." The pieces clicked. Brenda wasn't just exploiting Dad's gambling. She was manipulating him when he was vulnerable. I forwarded the email to Delgado, my lawyer, with a note, "Urgent possible coercion." Then the anonymous sender's next line hit me like a wave. Brenda Colton was June Reynolds' nurse 2005 to 2006. She knows the fund's structure. My knees weakened. Brenda had cared for Grandma June during her final years when she set up the trust to protect Mom. She knew its clauses, its weaknesses, and now she was targeting it. Mom's hand flew to her bracelet, June's heirloom, as if anchoring herself. June trusted her. She said, her voice breaking. How could she do this? I shook my head, anger rising. Brenda wasn't a random opportunist, she was a predator using her past with June to exploit our family now. I called Captain Sorensen. My voice steady despite the fury. "Captain, my father's off the ship with Brenda Colton, who's linked to a fraudulent transfer from our family fund. I need that tender tracked." Sorensen's tone was grave. "We're locating them now. The clinic's been flagged before. We'll coordinate with port authorities." I hung up, my mind racing. Brenda's role reversal stunned me. Mom and I had been the ones fighting back, but now Dad was her victim, not her ally. The ledger, the medication, her history with June, it was a system of abuse, not a one-off scam. I looked at Mom, her resolve hardening. "We stop her?" "Kate," she said, her voice fierce. "For June." We moved to the ship's lounge where crew were monitoring passenger movements post-alarm. A crackle came over a security radio. A muffled voice I recognized as Brenda's, sweet and coaxing from a live feed at the clinic. "Just sign the last page, darling," she cooed, her words dripping with manipulation. Mom gasped, her hand clutching mine. Dad's response was slurred, barely audible. "We overhear Brenda coo." "Just sign the last page, darling." Brenda's voice. "Just sign the last page, darling," crackled through the security radio, her honeyed tone chilling me as Mom and I stood in the Golden Horizons lounge surrounded by the hum of crew monitors. The camera footage showing Dad boarding a tender with Brenda to the Coastal Wellness Clinic paired with the anonymous nurse's ledger photo of a coerced $10,000 transfer had exposed Brenda's scheme. She wasn't just a church friend. She was June's former nurse, exploiting her knowledge of our family's trust. Mom's grip on my hand tightened, her bracelet glinting with resolve, but Dad's slurred response on the radio told me he was in deeper than I'd feared, medicated, manipulated, and far from the ship. I turned to the crew member, a stern woman with a headset. "Get Captain Sorensen now," I said, my voice sharp. She nodded, patching him through on a secure line. Sorensen's face appeared on a nearby screen, his gray eyes steely. Ms. Reynolds, we've located your father at the clinic. I've contacted Nassau authorities and informed the clinic will report coercion if they don't release him immediately. My chest eased slightly. Sorensen wasn't just a captain. He was an ally honoring June's legacy. What's their response? I asked. He leaned closer, his voice low. They're backing down. Claim it's a misunderstanding, but they're sending him back on the next tender. We'll have him in an hour. Mom exhaled, her shoulders sagging, but I wasn't done. Captain Brenda's with him. She's behind this. Check her history with Coastal Wellness. Sorensen's jaw tightened. Already on it. Port police are reviewing her prior visits. The clinic's retreat was a win, but Brenda's claws were still in our family and I needed Dad safe to get answers. The tender arrived at dusk and Mom and I waited at the dock, the sea air heavy with salt. Dad stepped off his face. Pale eyes glassy from medication, Brenda trailing behind her red scarf stark against her forced smile. A crew member escorted them to a private cabin for debriefing, and I followed Mom at my side. Dad slumped into a chair, his hands shaking as he pulled out his wallet. A folded paper slipped free landing on the floor. I picked it up, my heart stopping as I recognized June's cursive, "Let Kate handle when pride blinds." I handed it to Mom, her eyes welling as she read it aloud. Your grandmother gave this to me years ago. Dad said, his voice hoarse. She knew I'd mess up, said you'd fix it, Kate. The letter was June's voice from beyond, trusting me to steer through Dad's failures just as she'd planned with the sponsorship clause. I sat across from him, my anger tempered by his frailty. Why did you ban me from the cruise, Dad? I asked, my tone firm but calm. He looked down, his fingers twisting the wallet. I was ashamed, he said, his voice breaking. The gambling. It came back. I lost thousands, hid it from your mother. Brenda offered to help, said she'd manage my meds, keep it quiet. I banned you because you'd see through it, ask questions. I was scared you'd think I'm weak dependent. Mom's hand found mine, her bracelet cool against my skin. Dad's confession wasn't just an apology. It was a crack in his pride, exposing the fear that had driven him to push me away. I wanted to be furious, but June's words softened me. This was the healing she'd meant not just for Mom, but for us all. Brenda stood silently, her eyes darting to the door, but the crew member blocked her exit. Mr. Reynolds, you signed papers at the clinic, I said, holding up my phone with the ledger photo. Under medication. That's not consent, that's coercion. Dad's head dropped, shame, etching deeper lines in his face. She said it was for treatment, he mumbled. I didn't read it all. Mom's voice cut in steady and fierce. You let her take our family's future, Howard. The cabin felt smaller, the weight of Dad's mistakes pressing in. I forwarded the ledger to Sorensen, adding, Captain, this needs to go to the authorities. He nodded on the screen. It's with them now. We're holding Ms. Colton until the hearing. I looked at Dad, his apology raw but real. June's letter had shifted something not just in me, but in Mom, who stood taller, her resolve unbroken. We were reclaiming our family piece by piece, but Brenda wasn't done. As the crew escorted her out, a siren wailed outside, sharp and urgent. A port police officer appeared, his expression grim. Ms. Reynolds. Ms. Colton's filed a complaint against you for financial interference. We need to speak. My heart sank. Brenda was fighting back, turning the tables. Siren wails. Brenda files complaint against me. Police want a word. The siren's wail and the port police officer's words. Brenda's complaint against me for financial interference sent a chill down my spine as I stood in the Golden Horizon's private cabin, Mom's bracelet glinting on her wrist, and Dad's weary eyes fixed on the floor. His apology for banning me out of shame over his gambling relapse, coupled with Grandma June's letter urging me to handle his pride, had begun to mend our fractured bond. But Brenda's counterattack was a calculated move. She'd coerced Dad into signing away $10,000 of June's fund at the clinic, and now she was turning the tables, painting me as the villain. My lawyer instincts kicked in. I needed to flip this with evidence, not emotion, before her lies took hold. I faced the officer, a stocky man with a clipboard, his expression neutral but expectant. "Officer, I have proof. This is baseless," I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my chest. I pulled out my laptop, opening a folder I'd meticulously compiled the $40,000 $1,000 cruise payment receipt email logs, showing Dad's guest swap from his device, the purser's report flagging Mom's bracelet as missing, unauthorized, Delgado's letter confirming my sponsorship clause rights, and the clinic's fraudulent consent form, signed by a medicated Dad. I handed the officer printed copies, each page a brick in my defense. "These show I acted legally to protect my mother's interests," I said. "Brenda Colton's the one exploiting my family." Mom nodded her resolve, mirroring mine, while Dad sat silent, his hands clasped tightly. The officer skimmed the documents, his brow furrowing. "This is substantial," he said. "We'll need to review this at the hearing." My phone buzzed with an email from Lila, the travel agent marked urgent. I opened it, my pulse racing as I read her bombshell, Kate. I dug deeper. Brenda settled a civil case 2 years ago with a widow on this cruise route. Same Nassau Clinic IP in the guest change logs. My breath caught. Brenda wasn't just a one-time schemer. She'd targeted vulnerable passengers before using the same playbook. I forwarded the email to the officer, and Delgado adding, "This proves a pattern." The officer made a note, his expression darkening. "If this checks out, Ms. Colton's in serious trouble." Mom's hand found mine, her bracelet cool against my skin, a reminder of June's trust in me to fight back. Then another call came, Evan, his voice shaky over speakerphone. "Kate, I need to come clean," he said, the ship's hum faint behind him. "Grandma June tasked me with watching the fund years ago before she passed. She swore me to secrecy, said Dad's pride would cloud his judgment. I hid it from him, thinking I was protecting him. I froze the revelation, flipping Evan's role from accomplice to reluctant guardian. "Why didn't you tell me?" I demanded. He sighed. "I thought I could handle it, keep Dad's gambling quiet." When Brenda showed up, I didn't see her for what she was. Mom's eyes narrowed, but I saw hurt there too. Evan, the golden boy, had been June's ally, yet failed to warn us. I sent Delgado a note, Evan's admission fund oversight. Verify. June's foresight was staggering, but Evan's silence had let Brenda slip through. My phone pinged again, an encrypted video from the anonymous nurse, the same one who'd sent the ledger and warned about consent forms. The subject line read, "Proof of coercion." I played it, my heart pounding. The grainy footage showed Brenda at the clinic leaning over Dad, his eyes glazed as she slid papers toward him. "Sign here, Howard," she said, her voice syrupy. "It's just for your care." He scrawled his name unsteady as she smiled. A text followed. "I'm June's old friend from her sailing days. Brenda betrayed her trust too." My jaw dropped. The nurse wasn't just a whistleblower, she was June's ally, the friend at port from her note. I forwarded the video to the officer and Sorensen, my hands trembling. "This is undeniable," I said. "Brenda manipulated a medicated man." The officer nodded, radioing for Brenda's detention pending the hearing. Mom stood, her voice firm. "Kate, you've done what June knew you could." Dad looked up, his face etched with regret. The evidence, Bill's logs. Delgado's letter, Lila's bombshell, Evan's confession. The nurse's video had turned Brenda's accusation against her, exposing her system of abuse. But Dad's gaze held something deeper, a plea unspoken. He cleared his throat, his voice soft. "Kate, I've lost my way. What must I do to rejoin the family table?" Howard asked softly. "What must I do to rejoin the family table?" Dad's quiet plea. "What must I do to rejoin the family?" Table hung in the air, his weathered face searching mine as we stood in the Golden Horizon's private cabin. The weight of Brenda's failed complaint against me still settling. My evidence, Bill's logs. Delgado's letter. Lila's revelation about Brenda's prior settlement. Evan's confession, and the nurse's video had flipped her accusation, exposing her coercion of Dad at the clinic. Mom stood beside me, her bracelet gleaming a symbol of her reclaimed strength. June's trust in me woven through her letters and the sponsorship clause had brought us here. But justice wasn't about punishment. It was about fairness, empowering Mom and setting boundaries that would hold. The onboard hearing convened at 8 a.m. In a stark conference room, the ship's gentle sway a reminder of the storm we'd weathered. Captain Sorensen presided, his gray eyes scanning the room where Mom, Dad, and I sat across from a detained Brenda. Her red scarf absent, her demeanor subdued, but defiant. A Port Authority officer presented the case, citing my evidence, the ledger photo showing Dad's coerced signature, the video of Brenda's manipulation, and Lila's report of her prior civil settlement with a widow. Mr. Reynolds Sorensen said, his voice firm, "Your actions enabled financial misconduct." Dad nodded, shame etching his face. "Ms. Colton, your pattern of exploiting passengers is clear. You're banned from this route pending a full investigation, and Coastal Wellness has been reported to Nassau authorities." Brenda's lips tightened, but she said nothing, her legal savvy useless now. Mom's hand found mine under the table, her grip steady, a sign she was no longer just a bystander. I stood, addressing Sorensen. "Captain, my goal was to protect my mother, not to harm anyone. I request the sponsorship clause be enforced to ensure her financial security." He nodded, pulling up the cruise portal on a screen. "As the payer, you have that right." I logged in, my fingers steady as I unlocked spending for Mom, alone dining excursions, medical, while keeping Dad's access restricted to essentials. A confirmation flashed. Financial access restored for Ruth Reynolds only. Mom's eyes met mine, a spark of pride in them. She wasn't just reclaiming her bracelet. She was reclaiming her autonomy, a boundary Dad couldn't cross. Sorensen logged the change, adding, "This protects Mrs. Reynolds and aligns with the clause's intent." Dad shifted, his voice low. "Kate, Ruth, I've failed you both. I'm ready to make this right." He pulled a document from his jacket, a limited power of attorney form drafted by the ship's legal officer overnight. "I'm signing this to give Ruth control of our joint accounts," he said, his hand trembling as he signed. "And I've enrolled in counseling and Gamblers Anonymous starting next week in Raleigh." Mom's face softened, not with forgiveness, yet, but with acknowledgement. The POA was a concrete step, a boundary that tied his redemption to action, not promises. I forwarded the signed form to Delgado, ensuring it was binding. Dad's willingness to face his addiction was a start, but trust would take time. My phone buzzed with a message from Evan, who'd stayed off the ship, his guilt evident even from Raleigh. "Kate, I'm sorry I hid June's task from you. I've joined a repayment plan for Dad's debts, my share too. Letter for Mom attached." I opened the attachment, a scanned note in Evan's messy scrawl. "Mom, I failed you by covering for Dad. I'll make it right, starting with honesty." I showed it to Mom, her eyes welling as she read. "He's trying," she said softly, her voice a mix of pain and hope. Evan's confession in the hearing's wake wasn't just an apology, it was a commitment to rebuild, to honor June's trust in him as fund overseer. I saved the letter for Delgado, another piece of our family's reset. Sorensen adjourned the hearing, his tone measured. "Ms. Reynolds, your actions exposed a serious breach. The cruise line will cooperate with authorities on Ms. Colton and the clinic." Brenda was escorted out, her silence louder than any defense. Mom stood taller, her bracelet catching the light, a symbol of her power reclaimed. We walked to the deck, the sea calm now, and I felt the weight of June's foresight guiding us. Her claws, her nurse friend, her letters had orchestrated this justice. Dad followed quieter, his steps slower but purposeful. "We'll rebuild Kate," he said, his voice raw. "I'll prove it." I nodded, not fully trusting yet, but open to his effort. Mom squeezed my hand, her strength a quiet force, boundaries set not in anger, but in clarity. As we reached the railing, Sorensen approached, his expressions solemn. He held out a sealed envelope, June's cursive unmistakable on the front. "This was left with my predecessor," he said. June's final message to be given when the truth docked. My heart skipped, the weight of her words settling in. "Captain hands me an envelope, June's final message. Captain Sorensen's outstretched hand holding an envelope marked with Grandma June's elegant cursive felt like a final piece of her puzzle as we stood on the Golden Horizon's deck, the sea stretching endlessly before us. The hearing had delivered justice. Brenda banned Dad cited Mom's financial control secured, and Dad's commitment to counseling and Gamblers Anonymous had planted a seed of hope. Mom's bracelet back on her wrist gleamed as a symbol of her reclaimed strength, but June's final message promised to untie the last knots of this ordeal. My fingers trembled as I took the envelope, Mom and Dad watching their faces a mix of anticipation and weariness. June's foresight had guided us this far. What else had she planned? I opened the envelope, unfolding a letter written in June's steady hand. My dearest Kate, it began. The $40,000 you gave for this cruise was no mere gift. It was a sponsorship clause I co-designed with the cruise line to guard Ruth from harm. I was a victim of medical abuse in my final years, pressured by a nurse to sign away assets. This clause, this trip is my legacy to ensure Ruth's safety, and your strength to enforce it. My throat tightened. Mom's eyes welling as I read aloud. June had been betrayed just as we nearly were by Brenda, her former nurse. The clause wasn't just financial, it was a shield crafted from June's pain to protect Mom. I glanced at Sorensen, his nod confirming her words. June sailed with my mentor, Captain Hagen, he said. I was his apprentice. She called me her friend, left instructions to watch over you. The nurse who sent the video, she was June's ally too from those days. My heart raced, the anonymous nurse, June's friend at port, and Sorensen had been her network woven into this moment. Mom clutched her bracelet, its sapphire catching the sunlight. June knew I'd need you, Kate, she said, her voice steady. She saw what I couldn't. Dad's head bowed, his silence heavy with the weight of his failures. The letter continued. Truth before fireworks, Kate. Let it heal, not harm. June's words were a vow, a call to resolve this with clarity, not vengeance. I folded the letter, tucking it into my pocket, my resolve firm. June's legacy wasn't just the fund. It was this moment where truth had docked, binding us closer. That evening, we gathered in the ship's dining hall, the Silver Sisters joining us at a long table, their warmth a quiet anchor. Mom, her bracelet shining, leaned toward me, her voice soft. Kate, let's take a trip, just us. A fall foliage train through New England maples, quiet, no casinos. I smiled, the idea sparking joy. It's a plan, I said, squeezing her hand. Dad across the table cleared his throat. I've booked a heart check and Gamblers Anonymous back home, he said, his eyes meeting mine. No more hiding. Evan, who'd flown to meet us at the final port, nodded, his expression somber but earnest. I'm in too, he said, pulling out his phone. No booze, no gambling, just us. He snapped a photo. Mom, Dad me the table set with water and cornbread, a sober family portrait that felt like a new beginning. My phone buzzed mid-dinner. Captain Sorensen's name flashing. I answered, his voice brisk. Kate, Port Police just arrested Brenda Colton at Nassau. Multi-case investigation, other passengers, same clinic, same pattern. My breath caught relief washing over me. Brenda's schemes were unraveling, her arrest a final nail in her deception. Mom overheard, her shoulders relaxing, the bracelet glinting as she raised her glass of sparkling water. To June, she said, her voice strong. We toasted the clink of glasses, sealing our vow to move forward truth first. As we left the dining hall, Sorensen handed me a small parcel from the ship's safe. A Key West postcard, a shell sketched in June's hand with a note. Second chances owe you one. I showed Mom, her smile bittersweet. June's final gift was this closure, a reminder that redemption was possible. We planned our train trip, Dad's recovery. Evan's accountability, all under June's watchful legacy. A year later on that New England train, the leaves ablaze in crimson and gold. Mom and I sat together, her bracelet catching the light. The carriage dimmed as we entered a tunnel, and across the aisle a familiar bracelet glinted in the seat ahead. Next autumn, train lights dim. A familiar bracelet glints in the seat ahead. Captain Sorensen's outstretched hand holding an envelope marked with Grandma June's elegant cursive felt like a final piece of her puzzle as we stood on the Golden Horizon's deck, the sea stretching endlessly before us. The hearing had delivered justice. Brenda banned Dad's cited Mom's financial control secured, and Dad's commitment to counseling and Gamblers Anonymous had planted a seed of hope. Mom's bracelet back on her wrist gleamed as a symbol of her reclaimed strength, but June's final message promised to untie the last knots of this ordeal. My fingers trembled as I took the envelope, Mom and Dad watching their faces a mix of anticipation and weariness. June's foresight had guided us this far. What else had she planned? I opened the envelope, unfolding a letter written in June's steady hand. "My dearest Kate," it began. "The $40,000 you gave for this cruise was no mere gift. It was a sponsorship clause I co-designed with the cruise line to guard Ruth from harm. I was a victim of medical abuse in my final years, pressured by a nurse to sign away assets. This clause, this trip is my legacy to ensure Ruth's safety and your strength to enforce it." My throat tightened, Mom's eyes welling as I read aloud. June had been betrayed just as we nearly were by Brenda, her former nurse. The clause wasn't just financial, it was a shield crafted from June's pain to protect Mom. I glanced at Sorensen, his nod confirming her words. "June sailed with my mentor, Captain Hagen," he said. "I was his apprentice. She called me her friend, left instructions to watch over you. The nurse who sent the video, she was June's ally too from those days." My heart raced. The anonymous nurse, June's friend at port, and Sorensen had been her network woven into this moment. Mom clutched her bracelet, its sapphire catching the sunlight. "June knew I'd need you, Kate," she said, her voice steady. "She saw what I couldn't." Dad's head bowed, his silence heavy with the weight of his failures. The letter continued. "Truth before fireworks, Kate. Let it heal, not harm." June's words were a vow, a call to resolve this with clarity, not vengeance. I folded the letter, tucking it into my pocket, my resolve firm. June's legacy wasn't just the fund. It was this moment where truth had docked, binding us closer. That evening, we gathered in the ship's dining hall, the Silver Sisters joining us at a long table, their warmth a quiet anchor. Mom, her bracelet shining, leaned toward me, her voice soft. "Kate, let's take a trip, just us. A fall foliage train through New England maples, quiet, no casinos." I smiled, the idea sparking joy. "It's a plan," I said, squeezing her hand. Dad across the table cleared his throat. "I've booked a heart check and Gamblers Anonymous back home," he said, his eyes meeting mine. No more hiding. Evan, who'd flown to meet us at the final port, nodded, his expression somber but earnest. "I'm in too," he said, pulling out his phone. "No booze, no gambling, just us." He snapped a photo, Mom, Dad, me, the table set with water and cornbread, a sober family portrait that felt like a new beginning. My phone buzzed mid-dinner, Captain Sorensen's name flashing. I answered, his voice brisk. "Capeport Police just arrested Brenda Colton at Nassau. Multi-case investigation, other passengers, same clinic, same pattern." My breath caught relief washing over me. Brenda's schemes were unraveling, her arrest a final nail in her deception. Mom overheard, her shoulders relaxing, the bracelet glinting as she raised her glass of sparkling water. To June, she said, her voice strong. We toasted, the clink of glasses, sealing our vow to move forward, truth first. As we left the dining hall, Sorensen handed me a small parcel from the ship's safe. A Key West postcard, a shell sketched in June's hand with a note, "Second chances owe you one." I showed Mom, her smile bittersweet. June's final gift was this closure, a reminder that redemption was possible. We planned our train trip, Dad's recovery, Evan's accountability, all under June's watchful legacy. A year later, on that New England train, the leaves ablaze in crimson and gold. Mom and I sat together, her bracelet catching the light. The carriage dimmed as we entered a tunnel, and across the aisle a familiar bracelet glinted in the seat ahead. Next autumn, train lights dim. A familiar bracelet glints in the seat ahead. If this story of betrayal, justice, and family redemption gripped you, Hit that subscribe button to join our community and catch more tales of truth triumphing over deception. In the comments, share your thoughts. Did Kate's legal strategy surprise you? Or did June's foresight steal the show? Let us know what you'd do in Kate's shoes, and let's spark a conversation about standing up for family.